Chapter 8, A Destiny for Three. Pyper, San Diego. The journey to Thea was proving to be a daunting task. Mayo kept on complaining. Well, at least I was convinced that he was back to his usual annoying self. On the other hand, Dogen kept to himself. I wondered what he was thinking of. "How long have you been traveling?" Mayo asked. The question came so randomly that I was caught off guard. "It has been about 3 months since Dogen and I started the journey from Nivetan." "Why do you ask?" "Nothing. I guess I just didn't realize that it had been that long since I was put behind bars, and..." His voice trailed off, and his eyes got misty. "What is it?" Mayo shook his head. "Nothing," he said under his breath. "If you're not going to tell me what you're thinking, then why did you even have to ask me?" I tried squeezing in a smile to ease his worries. Mayo's face crumpled, but there were no tears in his eyes. When he spoke, though, I could sense that he was trying very hard not to cry. "It's just that. Nobody came to rescue me," he said, sniffing. I felt flushed all over. "I'm sorry, Mayo. I wanted to find you and Kino, but it was more difficult to do that than I thought. I will never forget what you did for me, and I swear, there's nothing that you can do that will make me desert you. I will do everything to keep you alive. A life for a life. And didn't I just prove that? I got here, didn't I?" Mayo hiccuped and wiped a non-existent tear from the corner of his eye. "I know you would come to rescue me," he said. "But what about my parents? And Suda?" Suda was Mayo's grandmother. She was the one who took care of him because his parents were in Kanelan serving the Emperor. Mayo's father was the legendary General Renner Calo, while his mother was Bettina Calo. She wasn't a general, but from what Mayo told me in the past, it might not take long before she becomes one. I put my hand on his shoulder. "I'm sure they were worried about you, but it wasn't exactly easy to locate you. We've been running away forever and nobody knows where we've been," I said. "You're fortunate," Mayo said to me. "When we were in the ghost town, I sensed that your parents love you a lot. It must be nice to be wanted like that. You also are. We just have different situations, though," I said. "And perhaps, when we get to see your parents, we can do something about that. Tell them how you feel." "Not going to happen. They're not the affectionate type. Father will probably just tell me to study and read my books," he protested. "I'm sure they have their own ways of showing their affection towards you," I said. "Yeah, you're probably right," Mayo replied, calming himself. "Hey," Dogen said. "Enough of that. Whatever you're discussing can wait. For now, we must focus on reaching Thea. The gods know what we'll face when we get there." I was grateful for Dogen's intrusion because I was unsure how to cheer Mayo up. He was right about one thing: my parents loved me a lot. I honestly wish there was some way to make Mayo feel better. Mayo heaved a deep sigh and ran a hand across his face to wipe away the sweat. "The bird did not come back," he said. "I know. That's too bad," I said. Dogen stopped walking and wiped his sweaty face too. Beads were falling from his face down to his shirt. "Do you feel the heat?" he asked. I ran a hand on my cheeks and the back of my neck. I was surprised to find that I was sweating a lot too. Mayo's face was flushed, and he looked so cute with his rosy cheeks like he was a ripe apple. "It's impossible not to," I mumbled. We finally reached a clearing, and I stared in awe as the tall volcanoes of Thea came into view. "This is it," Dogen said. "Welcome to Thea, the land of the lost dragons." "That's why it's so hot. We're finally here," Mayo complained. "Remind me again why we came here." "The last dragon," I said. "The Emperor is looking for it, so we might as well look for it too. If it gets into the wrong hands, Akea will be ruined. If ever there's still a dragon, that is," Mayo said. "It's not a dragon yet," Dogen said. "The Emperor is looking for the last egg, not the last dragon. If there still were a dragon, someone would have captured it already, or perhaps tales about its flight or monstrosity would have reached Kanelan already. It's just an egg. It's surreal. I mean, now that we're here, I don't know where to start. What are we going to do?" I blurted out. I looked at Dogen, and his eyebrows were knotted. He was also as uncertain as I was about what to do next. "I told you that I'd been here before, but I wasn't able to familiarize myself with the place." Anywhere my eyes fell, dried land greeted me. There were hardly any trees, let alone fruit-bearing ones. I wondered how we would survive here. Mayo seemed to have reached that conclusion as well because he did not budge from where he was standing. "Let's go," I urged. Mayo shook his head. "What about food? What are we going to eat here?" "We'll find something," Dogen said. When Mayo still refused to walk, Dogen added, "I will make sure you'll have something to eat, and if the portions are too small, I will give you my share." "Come on," I said and walked on. Mayo would follow us for sure because what option does he have? Either we stick together, which means we could have a better chance of survival, or each take a separate path, which could lead to our early demise. It was not an appealing thought. I heard Mayo's footsteps rushing after me as though he had broken into a sprint. When night fell, the sight that greeted us was even more fascinating. Karasthea had embers burning atop the volcanoes, as though moonlight were not enough to illuminate the sky, and it needed the volcanoes to add spice to the solemn evening. We were sitting together, ready to settle in for the night. Mayo took a big bite of a brown root crop that I somehow found along the road. "It's amazing how this land seems to come to life at night when, in the morning, it looks so barren," Mayo said. "I thought the volcanoes had not erupted for a long time? Then how come I see burning embers on top of the volcanoes?" I said, sitting beside Mayo. "Isn't that lava?" Dogen was walking towards Mayo and me and soon sat down lazily beside me with a loud thump. His forehead was creased. "That's what I was wondering too. How come the volcanoes are acting up?" he said. "Eat first," I said, thrusting a piece of the root crop towards him. Dogen eyed it warily before taking it. "Never tasted good," he said. "You've eaten this before?" I asked. "Bokbok is what this crop is called. The only root crop that can survive in this land despite the heat," he said. On the other hand, I took a bite of the apple that I was holding. I gave them both an apple as well. Dogen and Mayo were biting and munching on their apples and bokbok alternately. In a few days, our supply of apples will be depleted, and we will have to settle with bokbok for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. "What are we going to do with the last black egg when we find it?" I asked, confident that we would. "We'll have to destroy it," Dogen said. At the same time, Mayo bellowed, "We'll sell it to the highest bidder." "What?" I said. "Of course, we're not going to sell it. We didn't come here to make some profit on a trade. Our purpose is greater than that, Mayo." I turned to Dogen and said, "But do we really have to destroy the dragon's egg? I mean, if it's the last, shouldn't we save it? Try to hatch it or something? If we're starving, we can eat it. Who knows, maybe we'll even learn how to belch out a fire," Mayo said matter-of-factly. "The Emperor wants the dragon's egg, and if he wants it, I'm sure that nothing good would come out of it," Dogen said. "The egg has to be destroyed. As soon as we get hold of it, we must not think twice and crush the egg. Pound the shell with a huge rock." Somehow, I felt saddened by what Dogen said. Dogen stirred and looked around. "What is it?" I asked. Dogen immediately placed a finger on his lips to silence me. Mayo's eyes widened, and the apple he was biting on remained stuck to his mouth. I crouched low, and Mayo did the same. Dogen crouched beside us. The weird thing was that I did not sense anything or anyone around us. "What is it?" Mayo asked. I shrugged. We stayed in this position for a while, but when nothing happened, Dogen got back on his feet and offered a hand to pull me up. I graciously accepted. "I could almost feel the tree runners," he murmured. "I could sense them, and I swear I felt them, but why they would never show themselves to us baffles me. I remember the tree runners and my encounter with them. They wanted to take Kino because they saw him transform into a little tree runner. How Arden had laughed at that. Upon remembering Arden, a hollow feeling engulfed me. "I've seen tree runners before," Mayo said. "Vile creatures." "They're not vile creatures," I protested. "Oh, yeah? Well, they didn't offer to help us when we were fighting in Sinista. Right before you found us, they were just all around, and they didn't even lift a finger on the general's men. They just watched," Mayo exclaimed. "All I know is that they built our houses a long time ago before they were banished to Sinista," I said. "They were our friends." "But why are they here?" Dogen said. "Unless They are also on the hunt for the last great black egg. That's exactly what Quila said. Mayo exclaimed. That the egg is under the care of the tree runners. That's right. I exclaimed. Quila had told of how Lucrin's daughter's lover kept the dragon's egg, and how this lover was cursed and turned into a tree runner. If we can catch any of them, maybe they can tell us where the last dragon's egg is. Dogen's brows drew a straight line. We have no other clues as to where to start. We may continue roaming Karasthea and then see if we will come across them. If I use my power, I may be able to grab one. I nodded reluctantly. I was unsure how this was going to help us with our mission. Maybe we should just have stayed in Kanela and waited for Kino. Sometimes, destiny works mysteriously, Dogen said. We are where we are supposed to be. I looked around at the grand volcano surrounding us and wondered if that were true. Or maybe, we were just here to burn.